Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad, and Tate. I do have my co-host. He's going to be here with me. Mr. Chuck Snow is going to be joining us. And we have a special guest with us tonight, Dr. Malea Jensen. She will be joining us, and we're, big proponents here. Always we're talking about health is wealth. We want to make sure that we try to do our special little part to kind of help everybody on their own little health journey. And so we're going to be talking about different things tonight with the good doctor to help you and to help us maybe start to get a little bit of a better, healthier lifestyle. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started, though. If you guys would, guys and girls would, please like, share, and subscribe to the video. And if you find anything tonight helpful or entertaining at all, or you know anyone that this may benefit, by all means, share the video. And with that being said, let me bring up my co-host really quickly. He's back. He's got his suntan. You guys see him. He looks beautiful as always, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Oh, Rico, you're too kind. I am great. You know what? My wife and I flew to Tahiti and took a trip, a cruise from Tahiti, and it was spectacular. It's a place we never thought we would get to, and it was just a wonderful holiday. But it is good to be back. It's kind of, although we love traveling, it's nice to sit at your own table and sleep in your own bed.
Absolutely. Well-deserved time off. Well, we don't want to belabor the point or keep the good doctor waiting. Let's bring her up and on board with us now. Let's welcome to the show Dr. Malea Jensen. Good evening, Doc. How are you?
Hi there, Rico. Hello, Chuck.
Hey, how are you, Doc? It's great to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
You have quite a presence that you have developed in not a lot of time, I don't think, on Instagram under the Iron Lady Doc. Great advice every day. How long have you been doing this?
Well, actually, I had a Facebook page, with my practice. The name of my practice is called Center Stage Primary Care. Right. And I've had Facebook up for quite a while, but I never was doing any videos. I would just do posts, about health topics on a fairly regular basis. So I don't necessarily think it was every day. And then at the coercion by a friend told me that I probably should start getting on Instagram. And June 25th was my first day on Instagram. And I've been doing a video a day since then.
Wow, you have really, you've done great. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So for everyone that's tuning in as well, if you want to pose a question to the doctor, you can use the chat feature if you're watching us on Facebook or if you're watching us on YouTube. Or even, I'm not sure if the Instagram will transfer over, but we're actually streaming live on Instagram right now tonight as well. So if you have a question, if you would like to get in with a question or anything with that, please drop it in the chat below, and we'll try our best to make sure that we weave it into the conversation, into the topic of the show tonight. Man, I guess jumping right into it, we were talking a little bit before we came on air. So I don't know, Doc, where would you like to start as far as what are some things, some practical things for some guys and girls that are out there on the road that don't necessarily have the greatest different choices of food? You're kind of just relegated to just mainly fast foods. What are maybe some different hacks that people could use if they don't have no other choices but fast food? What are some practical? I guess let's start there, and then we'll work our way to people that may be a little bit more proactive, that want to go grocery shopping or actually be a little bit more active in seeking out better options.
Okay, Rico and Chuck, I think I'll start just briefly telling the listeners who I am and sure. Why, I think they might want to get a connection, but I'm a family practice physician in Des Moines, Iowa, and I've been practicing for 25 years, going on 26 here in June. So mid-June, I will be turning over my 26th year. I went to medical school at an osteopathic school here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I also did my residency in Des Moines. So I did a DO medical school and I did an MD residency. So I'm,
Wow.
I guess, broad spectrum, but I've been practicing here in Des Moines for the last 12 years. I've been on my own. So I've been practicing on my own. The name of my practice is Center Stage Primary Care. And I went on my own because I feel that the corporate America and healthcare was not for me. And I didn't feel that our belief systems aligned. So with that being said, that's my background. That's where I come from. And my prerogative, my agenda for developing Center Stage Primary Care was for my patients and my listeners to take their health center stage. Put your health center stage. If you take care of yourself, you'll be able to take care of others around you. So it's based on prevention. My practice has always been based on prevention. Medicines, there could be a place for them, but if we take care of ourselves, we have a better chance at a healthier, a more quality longevity. So the quality stage of life.
Absolutely. I agree.
You know, it's so nice to hear a medical doctor talk about hitting the problem from the other end before it starts, because so frequently medical doctors just they go after the result, not the cause. And I have a theory, and I've seen it a number of times when I don't want to scare you, Doc, but when because you're a lot different than most of your other doctors. But when I see a doctor get sick, they usually die pretty quickly because I find they're not willing to even look at anything other than their frame of reference.
Yeah, I think as we are brought up, so to speak, through residency or medical school, then residency, we are taught in a certain direction. Right. We're taught to identify a diagnosis and treat it, but we're not ever taught how to prevent the disease. So we're, fortunately for myself, before I was a doctor, I was a weightlifter. Before I was a doctor, I was an athlete. So my bringing up, the way I was brought up was to be healthier, to live a healthier lifestyle. So I give all the kudos to my dad for raising me that way. And so it was just a natural transition for me to go to medical school and fulfill somewhat of a dream I had, but I had no idea that I would have been indoctrinated, so to speak, into a healthcare, the healthcare, the system as it is today, where we are trained to treat people with medications. Yeah. And so if you're seeing 40 or 50 patients a day, that's all you have. All you have is a Band-Aid. Most doctors only have, is the Band-Aid. They feel like they're righteous, but it's really disguised as, let's just give you a medicine and I'll see you later. And so I'm not sure that we could even, when we're seeing 40 patients, even have time to take any interest in the person themselves. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think everybody suffers because of it. It's really, they've kind of like McDonaldized the healthcare profession.
I don't prefer McDonald's, but
haven't eaten one in many, many years, but once in a while I do buy a coffee there.
Oh, do you?
Once in the blue moon when I'm stuck. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And that's one of the things when I saw you on Instagram, I thought, wow, this doctor has a totally different outlook on medicine and what you're doing. Can you tell our listeners what you're doing? Because I think this is brilliant with your annual subscription I think this is so phenomenal. It's better than anything I've heard in ages.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Chuck. I appreciate it. I offer a $10 a month or $100 for the whole year for members to join what I have referred to as the center stage community. And right now, since I am very young and I'm a producer of one, I am answering back all questions on my own. I want to be able to do that in the future as well. So when you join as a member, you get my phone number and you can text me questions when they arise, and I'm there to help you and guide you in your health, whether it be through exercise and or diet, and giving you ideas on sleep, on stress reduction, but those sort of things. And Chuck, I've never had it's been less than a year. I have not had anybody abuse the questions.
Right.
It's been a nice way for listeners to join and have another doctor in their back pocket. I have several of my members that have their own PCP, primary care physician, and they'll be told something by their primary care and they want to bounce it off of me. Now, again, I'm not their doctor, and it's not medical advice. It's for information purposes only. But it does help. I think they've told me that it helps them ask the right questions to their doctors.
Right.
And that's sometimes, I don't know about where you live, Rico, and where you live in Des Moines, Doc, but I know that here in Canada, good luck with doing that because we have socialized medicine. And people are so misinformed with socialized medicine. I remember going to the Mayo Clinic about 13, 14 years ago just for a checkup. And the two doctors that were there to see me said, "What are you doing here? You're from Canada. You guys have free health care." And I just looked at them. I said, "Well, so much for socialized medicine, boys. Take a look. Tell me what you think."
Chuck, it's interesting that you say this because I have probably just recently have gained more Canadian members into the community than I just, now that you're saying it, I'm going, well, that fits the bill, perfectly, because, most Canadians might not even be able to get to their doctor, let alone ask them a question. So
exactly.
having myself or another physician, there's a lot of docs who offer memberships, and their communities are growing, and they have, they have little sessions like this within their community that only the subscribers, and I'm not yet there. Basically, I'm more one-on-one with the patients, or excuse me, with the listeners or the members. I'm more one-on-one. You have a question, you get me.
Now, will you do things like the sort of questions you're getting on a daily basis? Is it the sort of thing where somebody is, I'm going to just, for example, somebody is prescribed a pharmaceutical and they're wondering if they can mix it with red wine, for example, and they can't get any information from their doctor, and trying to get through to some of the pharmacies sometimes it's not the easiest, especially some of the busier ones. So is that the sort of questions you're getting in your
that I haven't had that particular question, but yeah, something similar to along those lines. I've had questions in regards to labs. I've had questions in regards to a member being placed on a certain medication. Let's just say a statin, for your cholesterol, a cholesterol lowering medication, and say, "Hey, can you look at my labs? Do I really need this? What else should I be asking my doctor? Do I need a such and such test for further evaluation?" There's questions like that. I get questions in regards to stuffy noses and what can I use naturally, is there an iodine supplement that you recommend? So I do send links to people if there's something that I'm taking, and I will recommend it to you. That I try not to recommend something outside of what I have ever used or have no I want to be able to have used it myself and have experience before I go and recommend something that I'm not familiar with.
Sure. No, I totally understand it. Now, you just made a statement about statins, and I was prescribed them many years ago, and then did a little bit of research and told the doctor, I'm not taking these. I refuse. There's no way. And I was able to cure my what I thought was my cholesterol issue, but it turns out it really isn't, with kiwis, by eating kiwis for breakfast, and went away. What is your now what I believe is that this whole cholesterol thing, the statins were invented, and then they invented the disease cholesterol. Is that not the truth of some study done that turned everything around by the pharmaceutical industry?
I think, this all started in the early 50s. If you read, there's a book that blew my mind, and I know, your particular, the truck drivers out there, they can't stop and read books. I get it, but you could listen to books online on audio. And
Yeah.
one of the books that kind of blew my mind when I first got started looking into this was a book that was actually gifted to me by one of my patients, and said, I think gently they wanted to tell me that I'm barking up or down the wrong tree. And they thought that I had it all wrong. And so they gifted me a book called The Big Fat Surprise. And it was a surprise, to say the least. And so that got me looking down more rabbit holes with similar books by similar people, but yet different authors. But The Big Fat Surprise is what kind of triggered me to go down rabbit holes that maybe did indicate, I think now, that I was taught or indoctrinated all wrong. Now, the study I think that you're referring to is the 7 countries study. And, you have to look at, whenever you read a study, how that study was performed. Is it a randomized study that was double-blinded, placebo-controlled, or was it an epidemiologic study? We send you out a questionnaire and you tell me what you've been eating for the last 5 years. Like anybody, even my listeners now or myself, would be able to remember what we ate. Now, if the American Heart Association got on board with this particular theory, what I think is a fraudulent claim that cholesterol is the cause of coronary artery disease, you can see how that led to pharma developing medications that treated a disease that has or treated a condition that really has no disease. And so
I totally agree. And you know what? On our cruise, I was actually with some heart doctors, and I didn't say anything to them. I held my tongue, but I couldn't believe what these people ate. And then talking to them, they would be saying things. Well, you know what? I like to cook a low-fat dinner at home, and I'll put some canola oil in the frying pan, and because it's good for you, and fry up a piece of fish. I love to buy salmon, and most of the salmon, as you know, is farmed. So that's pretty much a no-no. That's a bunch of crap you're eating if you're eating that. And then frying things in canola oil, your diesel engine will run beautiful on it. But
right on. Yep.
that's what it was intended for, I understand.
Well, actually, Rico and I were talking about these seed oils.
Right.
Seed oils, for our listeners, are canola, safflower, sunflower, anything that comes from a seed. And Chuck, you're on the right line of thinking here, is that those are industrialized. These are oils that we used in engines on ships during World War II, especially with Crisco. So we are using industrialized seed oils as a food, and we're wondering why we got more disease. If saturated fat was the problem, And saturated fats are found in animals. If all of our animal consumption is going down because they told us not to eat these fats, what is happening to diabetes?
It's
It's
going
going
up.
up. What's happening to coronary artery disease?
It's going up too.
Stroke, hypertension, dementia, Alzheimer's, all going, cancer, all going up. And so what they told us was to eat a low-fat diet. What it's causing is more diseases, because when you get rid of fat in your diet, you're going to have to replace it with something. What would that be?
Carbs.
Carbohydrates. Yep. Carbohydrates, no matter what they are, spike blood sugar. Your blood sugar will go up no matter what carb you eat. Your blood sugar is going to go up. And when blood sugar goes up, the natural progression of the way our body works is insulin will be produced from our pancreas. Insulin's job is to lower the blood sugar. It does that by pushing sugar into the cells. But once the blood sugars get so high, because you think about, you're sitting in your office truck and you're driving along and you're nibbling the whole time for hours. Okay. You could be nibbling here and there, a little something here, a little something there. And at the same time, your blood sugars are staying elevated. And so your insulin level will stay elevated. And the insulin is swimming in a sea of sugar. And the sugar cannot get into the cells any longer because the cells clam up. They clam up and they won't let any more sugar in. Fat cells, muscle cells, brains, whatever, they become insulin resistant. And your insulin levels go higher and higher. And when you have high insulin levels, you get fatter. Insulin is a growth hormone. It grows everything in your body. It grows your fat cells, your muscle cells, your brain cells, your cancer cells. They get your fat cells get fatter. And so when people say, I can't lose weight, I check an insulin level. If it's over 13, the normal, by the way, is 3 to 5. But anything really over 12, 13, you are not going to be able to lose weight. You couldn't lose fat if you tried. Your insulin is so high that it's laying down fat faster than you can burn it. And so people are stuck with, I'll just lower my calories. That doesn't do anything. You're still eating the wrong foods.
When you're saying over 13, what unit of measurement are you referring to, Doc?
I believe that's I'm not sure. Is that in deciliters or nanomoles? I cannot remember the standard of measurement for insulin, but I'm guessing.
The reason I ask is I wear I am type 2 diabetic and I wear a CGM, and
well, your continuous glucose monitor is something different that measures blood sugar. You could have normal blood sugars and a high insulin level because your insulin is working so hard to lower what you got going on. That's why checking an insulin level can detect diabetes years in advance, because your insulin wants to lower the blood sugars. So it's doing really, really good trying to lower the blood sugars, right? But the insulin is so high, eventually your beta cells in your pancreas burn out and it can't produce. It's like putting your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. You got the gas of the sugars, right? And then you got this brake, and the insulin's trying to solve the sugar problem, but eventually the engine's just going to burn out. And so we're left with a very poorly functioning pancreas, and that's when diabetes starts. Your blood sugars will just skyrocket, and your A1C will reflect that.
Got you.
Now, you know what, Doc? I got to say, this is by far the best explanation of how this works that I've ever seen. This is phenomenal. You make it sound. You know what? I never went to post-secondary education, and And listening to you, I understand this totally how this works.
Yeah, it can be fairly daunting at first, but I think if people listening had their fasting insulin level checked, they would be able to see how insulin resistant they actually are. Even if a person says, well, I just got a little bit of belly fat, you see that insulin is laying down that fat. And what's worse is the person might not show it on the outside, but they have it on the inside. They have fat around their visceral organs, choking them off. And the liver is a good example. We get a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because, most people not these days are actually cutting back on their alcohol, and alcohol's not the cause. It's the insulin being so high that it's laying down fat, not only in the subcutaneous, but visceral, your organs. It's laying down fat on top of the organs. Now, I know that I'm giving insulin a bad name right now. He's a very important hormone in our body among all the other hormones. We just don't need him so high. We need a delicate balance of sugar and insulin. And that insulin level wants to be around 3 to 5 to be normal. If he's high, he's telling you folks listening that your blood sugars are too high. Something you're eating is releasing or breaking down into sugar. Fat does not break down into sugar, unless, of course, you're a type 1 diabetic, but that's for another subject.
Yeah,
but if you are type 2 or a non-diabetic, fat does not spike glucose. Protein.
Okay, just so I get this straight, Doc, my understanding is that type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas does not produce any insulin, and type 2 is when it produces too much, correct?
That's a good way of saying it, but a type 2, yes. A type 1 diabetic actually has antibodies. They were born with antibodies to their pancreatic beta cells. Usually, most type 1 diabetics are found out by the age of 7, sometimes 13. I have seen one in their 30s. So checking an insulin level, if it's 0, you know that you're a type 1. You have no insulin, or less than 1. You can also get a C-peptide. A C-peptide, if it's 0, you're a type 1. If you have C-peptide, high, it tells you how much insulin you have in your body. If C-peptide is high, insulin is high.
Okay. So I got a question for you, Doc, because right now when we're talking about medical profession as well, right now all the rage seems to be, and I think people are doing this without being diabetics, because everybody's hearing about the miracle semaglutide. Everybody's wanting to get on semaglutide. They're even buying it any way they can get their hands on it. What are maybe some I think there might be a cautionary tale to be had there. I'm not sure, but since we got you on, and that seems to be a hot subject right now, I figured I'd throw the question out at you.
Oh, Rico, you've asked a very very deep and very important question.
Yeah, he's good at that. I forgot to warn you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very good. The thing with semaglutide, that's Wegovy, that's Ozempic, and those are GLP-1 inhibitors. Okay, they work on a receptor, a hormone in our stomach. There's also newer GLP, GIP, which is like Mounjaro and Zepbound, and these are the newest peptide medications that have been shown to work on different aspects of our body, including our stomach, which it slows gastric emptying. So the food you have in there, instead of going from the stomach and into the small intestine and going, it just slows that system down. So you get fuller faster. Okay. It also tells your brain It works on receptors in our brain that tell us you're not hungry. Sir, you're not hungry. And that's basically how those work, okay? Now, with that being said, there's all side effects to medications.
Right.
And if we slow your gastric emptying down, we risk having a paralysis of your stomach. Okay? We can risk getting nauseated. We can risk getting constipated. But these things are rare, of course. Have we seen them? Yeah, most people will stop using it because they don't like the feeling in their stomach. They get too nauseated or too constipated. But what I've learned, and Chuck, you might have heard this as well from Dr. Ben Bickman, who I consider an expert on this topic of these GLPs and insulin and fat cells. But Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro and Zepbound have been shown to increase the amount of fat cells that our body makes.
Oh, geez.
That's what I heard.
Yes. And so we have fat cells that can get bigger. That's called hypertrophy. And then we can get hyperplasia, which means increased number of fat cells. Now, take a scenario where Rico, you can never get your medicine again. And you just all of a sudden have to quit cold turkey.
Right.
Now you go back to eating what you've been eating prior to the dosing of the medication, and all of the many more fat cells can get fatter. So we have some questions, to be answered. And is this theory written in stone? No, but studies are ongoing that's leading to this. So it's important that if you're going to go on one of these peptide hormones, that you learn to change your eating habits. These medications are meant to be temporary. If I get you to stop eating carbohydrates and increase your fat and protein, you're eventually not going to need the Ozempics of the world, because you're eating. You can lose more weight by going carnivore or keto than you can with Wegovy or Ozempic or Mounjaro or Zepbound.
But doc, all those medications, really, all I'm hearing is that the big pharma is going after the result, not the cause. The cause to being overweight is eating either the wrong foods or
Yeah, we treat the symptom.
Or there's an emotional problem involved.
Well, you and I both know that anybody, whether they're skinny or obese, have an emotional problem. There's something going on emotionally that's disturbing how they look at food. Okay. So we look at food in, several different ways. Some of us look at food as a fuel source to get big muscles and to, fuel us through our day, to make us better athletes, to improve our brain function, our cognitive function. So we use fuel and we use food as that fuel for different reasons. Myself, it's mainly for, my health, my longevity, because I know the consequences of eating carbohydrates. I know what they cause. They cause disease. Yeah. And so I stay away from them at all costs. Even your kiwis, I would never touch. But that's me and my person. Right. And so, if you're eating emotionally, you eat for comfort, or you starve for comfort because you don't want to eat because you have a certain look that you're trying to obtain, whether that be thin or muscular or whatever it is. But any of these, anytime we have a bad relationship with food, we get an eating disorder. We either eat too much or too little. There's very rarely that we are right in between. It's common, but it's not as common as the extremes.
Yeah, they're becoming more common, unfortunately. And I think the scale's going on the obese side of the ledger rather than the malnourished side of the ledger. Although I did read something or listen to something you said that about people that, just because they are skinny doesn't mean they don't have eating problems of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, there's, obviously there's anorexia, there's bulimia, there's orthorexia. There's a lot of eating disorders. You can look at the person from the outside and not see how unhealthy they are on the inside. And we don't know that unless we check. And what really kind of chaps me is a lot of my listeners, Chuck, on Instagram have come to me and said that their doctors won't order a fasting insulin level for them. And
Really?
that's really too bad, because you're shutting down the person. The person has insurance or not that, if you go for a service, you're paying for a service, and you ask a simple question. It doesn't cost the doctor anything to get a fasting insulin level. And
So,
go ahead, Rico.
well, you brought up fasting, and here lately, that's also become kind of in vogue. You got a lot of people that are, what's the intermittent fasting, that they're trying to implement intermittent fasting. And you have a lot of people that different types of all different types of fast. And I know personally, there definitely are some benefits from fasting, but I'd be interested to know your take on the different aspects of fasting.
Again, Rico, very good question. And I want to caution your listeners and my listeners that fasting has to be planned. Now, what I mean by that is, if you are a person who's eating a lot of carbohydrates, let's go back to the insulin blood sugar scenario. If you're a person who has a diet full of carbohydrates, you're going to eat the carbohydrate, it's going to spike blood sugar. And then your insulin is going to take over and drop the blood sugar. That's the goal. That's the job of insulin, is to keep blood sugars low. When your blood sugars get low, how does that make you feel?
Tired, I would imagine.
You feel a little goofy, a little loopy.
And you get hungry, don't you?
Right.
Right. So when people who are eating carb diets try to fast, they are not very successful, because they'll eat something and they try to go long periods of time with low blood sugars. I'm a very strong person, but hunger is very hard to resist. It takes will and strength, and so what I would recommend is, if you were to go lower carb and then try to fast, and you have to ask yourself, why are we fasting? What is your goal? Is your goal to lose weight? Is it to go into autophagy? Is it a religious or a spiritual ritual that you do? There's got to be a reason why. And so I think that if people are on a carnivore diet, they're already fasting. Their insulin is already low. Things are already dying in their body, because sugar is the fuel for all of the disease. So if you don't give the cancer the sugar,
then the cells. Right.
Yep.
I follow you.
They can't grow.
Because
So
that's something that I practice myself personally. I try to every month. I try to do a 72-hour fast, just water fast every month. I kind of try to do it for like the first weekend of the month, and do like a 72-hour just straight water for 72 hours. No food or anything, just water.
Yeah, you just have to ask yourself, what is your goal for the 72-hour fast? Because I'm going to be perfectly honest, if people are eating seed oils and eating crappy carbs and processed foods and sugars, those things stay in your system for 7 years, not 72 hours. So 72 hours is kind of a waste of your time if you're going to go right back to eating crappy foods.
Okay, so Doc, this is my next question. I read something last week. It was interesting, and I want to bring it up. I read that if you fasted for a week, now, if you're going to fast for a week, I think you should do it under some sort of supervision, because all sorts of things could happen. But apparently, if you did a proper fast for a week, you drain a lot, you eliminate an awful lot of those sugars and things in your system. And I read that you have a 70% less chance of getting cancer because it kills the precancerous cells. Have you ever heard of anything like this, or is this more crap than I'm reading?
I'm not sure if it's crap or not. I haven't read that particular study. I don't know what's magical about a week. There must be a half-life of the cells that you're talking about. I know there's been some studies on these senescent cells and otherwise known as zombie cells.
Right.
I have not read enough studies where I could to give you a good enough response that I would feel good about. So I would probably just say I'm not able to answer that question.
That's more than fair.
Yeah, there is I don't know if you've read anything about a dry fast, a 24-hour dry fast. No, it's no food, no water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that?
There's been some studies that's actually healthier than doing water. You really clean out the toxins on a dry fast versus salt and water and that.
And how long of a fast did you say that was?
I'm not sure that people have gone over 24 hours.
Yeah. I just came off of Ramadan, and we fast during the daylight hours. It's completely dry fast during those hours, just from sun up to sundown. So
right. And honestly, when I was bodybuilding, we did dry fasts, and it feels horrible in those initial hours. After after about 12 hours, you're feeling like, okay. And the thing is, the reason why we're feeling like that is because your body actually starts making water for you. I mean, it's crazy how good our bodies work, and we don't think about these things.
I agree. We work really hard to mess up our bodies.
Yes, we do.
God was a genius. He is a genius to build such. Nobody's ever built a machine like our human bodies.
Our bodies are very forgiving as well. Even though for years we treated them like crap, but if we get on the right path, our bodies are pretty resilient and trying to get themselves.
Rico, that's a great point. We can recover very easily. So people say, this is another thing that kind of chaps me, is when doctors say, you know what, you got diabetes, there's nothing we can do, take the medicine. And that bothers me, because I believe through carnivore and keto diets that we can really reverse all of these diseases that we have. Now, with that being said, you said our bodies are really forgiving. What if we never did eat that way? You know how in society we have this thought on how long you should live. Oh, right. Well, gosh, if he lived to 75, he lived a great life, man. That's awesome, Rico. You lived to 75. If you happen to die and we talk about you at the funeral and we say, hey, he lived a darn good life. He got to 75, darn good life. Now, had we maybe not ever, been indoctrinated in all of this food, really they're fake foods, because let's be honest. A food, by definition, has to have nutritional value.
Absolutely.
Every food that we're putting, most every food that does not come from an animal, is fake food. It has no nutritional value. So let's put the scenario that had we never had fake food, how long would we be living? We only eat animals. We have an abundance of animals if we don't have monocrop fields taking and killing off all of our soil and our wildlife and all of that. But that's, again, another subject. Some of your truck drivers are carrying grains, and they say, woman, you quit that talk right now. That's my livelihood. I got to carry that grain from here to there. But we're in a terrible situation where we've been industrialized into thinking that we don't need animals and we can just eat crops and plants and these things, and that, we're sparing lives of our wildlife when we're really not. When you monocrop one field of soybeans, do you know what you've killed? You've killed every habitat that ever lived there.
Yep.
Now, if you told me you want to support grasslands, I'd be all for it. Forests, yeah, yes, indeed. That's when we get our wildlife back. But, you know, I'd always it gets me thinking about, like, where would we be today? Would the average age be 100 and we'd be at Rico's 150th day at the funeral? And
Right.
we'd say, boy, Rico had a great long life. He lived to 150. He drove truck till he was 148. I mean, there's, so I don't know how
I'll be satisfied at 140, but I'll take 150.
I was kind of thinking myself to be a centurion, whatever God has in store for me. If I'm still able to preach the gospel and share the gospel with people, then my job is not done.
Yep, I agree. God has a big plan for all of us. Rico had two grandparents that lived to be, how old were they? 110, Rico?
Wow, my great grandfather actually lived to be 112. My great grandmother lived to be like 115.
Wow,
that's amazing.
So, yeah. So if I can only be so blessed, just
well, don't race motorcycles like they did, and you'll be fine, man.
You have to ask yourselves what your grandparents were eating. We can have great genes, but we feed it all the wrong foods. Right. And then we get problems. That's when, cardiovascular disease and diabetes.
They had a farm. Yeah, they had a farm, and they definitely lived off the land. Everything, pretty much everything that they ate, they either raised it themselves or slaughtered it or raised it themselves or whatever. But they definitely.
And they never, Rico, I bet they never went to the doctor.
Hardly ever, not until they were way up in age.
Yeah. And Chuck, you're the statistics man. What is what have you heard about the leading causes of death? Heart, cancer, and then they joke around and say that doctors are the third leading cause of death.
Yeah, I didn't
want to say all we do is we give you your medicines. Just give you your medicines and promote your disease. We don't even think about what we're doing. We think that we're doing stuff for your benefit. Whose benefit? Whose benefit? Have we been so indoctrinated that we are the pawn, we're doing the work for the devil? We're doing the work for the pharma companies who actually own the food companies. The pharma owns the food.
Right.
If I give you the food, I can guarantee you be a lifelong customer for my medicines.
That's right. It's, what, from a business point of view, it's brilliant. Not that it's honest. It's rather sleazy. But I'll give you another statistic. One of the largest continuous fertile areas in the whole world is the land between probably just west of Pittsburgh, around the Ohio, Pennsylvania line, all the way to Oklahoma, all through there. It's one of the most vast fertile areas in the world, and of which about 90% of it is dedicated to growing junk food and animal food. Does that not say it all?
Yeah. Yep, they're making a lot of money off of us, and for your listeners, we need to turn away. We need to say no. We need to put our foot down and stop eating their poison. Their poison is killing us. Their poison is causing our diseases, our chronic diseases. Yes, we can reverse them. Your doctors are not being any help by just prescribing you medications and not sharing love with you. Sometimes it hurts, but people will tell me, I just can't do it. I don't want to do it. And I said, did I give you enough information that you could make a good decision? And they'll say yes. And I said, then you need to be the owner of your body. And so that's frustrating for me, but at least I gave them the information. Yeah.
That's all you can do. At the end of the day, we all have to be accountable for our own decisions.
All right. But a lot of times we need to humble ourselves and actually admit that we have a problem, because the foods that they're feeding us actually stimulate the opiate receptors in our brain. There's opium in these foods. There's an opium-like mechanism that attaches in our brain and addicts us, like heroin or crack or
Well,
whatever.
they
And
say
so
sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So
that's right. And so, if your kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, mom, dad, I'm contemplating doing crack cocaine," and you look at the kid and hear, if this is your answer,
right.
"Oh, kid, well, just do it in moderation." No, would you ever say that to your kid?
No.
Never.
No. But if your kid comes up and says, "Can I just have some goldfish?" and you say, "Only in moderation," there's really no difference. It hits the exact same receptor. So you're setting that kid up for lifelong disease. Children
So
learn what they live.
Yeah.
Children learn what they live. If a child lives with parents that eat crappy diets that have no nutritional value, they will grow up eating crappy diets.
I couldn't agree. I could not agree more, because it is hereditary. That people's, a lot of times people will say, well, you know what, his grandmother had cancer and his mother had cancer and he's got cancer, it runs in the family. And I go, a lot of times lifestyle's what is hereditary.
Yeah, we put we give genes way too much credit.
Yeah.
We really do. But and you look at yourself, you could look at myself, family history, and you say, "Hey, I never followed those footsteps."
Yeah.
So we have a choice. We have choices. If we know the ramifications, if we have enough information to make good decisions, I think we'll make good decisions. I really do.
Absolutely. So, in looking at the time, we're getting close up on time. Maybe, Doc, if you don't mind, can you maybe give us maybe some couple of pointers on, like I was saying earlier, as far as what are some alternatives that for people to maybe think about for their diets and things of that nature? Or maybe you can point us to a couple of more books or anything like that. And also, tell us where we can find your information. And you mentioned about you have a subscriber base where people can actually ask you questions. I wasn't familiar about that, but definitely make sure that you let us know how people can definitely find that information and how they can get to it, and maybe come directly to yourself for some help and information.
Absolutely. Yeah. On Instagram, I'm at Iron Lady Doc. So at Iron Lady Doc. So that's Instagram and Twitter, or X, at Iron Lady Doc. I'm also on YouTube at Iron Lady Doc. On Facebook, it's Center Stage Primary Care. And usually I have people just call and talk to my nurse in regards to the membership. My phone number at the office is 515-267-1961. And my nurse can give you some pointers and explain a little bit about what the membership is.
Can you
And
give the number
I
one more time,
appreciate,
Doc?
absolutely. It's 515-267-1961. And as far as just quickly about meals, if you center your meals around anything that comes from an animal, so ask yourself, when you eat something, did this come from an animal? If it did, we're good to go. If it did not, I would choose something else. So one of my favorites are red meat and eggs. Those are my staples. You could, like we were talking before, Rico, you could go in, grab a whole bunch of burgers with some butter wrapped up in bacon and take that to go, take it out to your truck, eat there. Eggs come with everything. You can get fried eggs and steak, scrambled eggs and steak. I'm a big believer in ground beef. I like ground beef, but some places I don't know, do they have venison, lamb, sheep? Anything red meat is the bomb. Occasionally you can throw in some chicken, and I have some negatives on chicken too, but if that's all you can get, eat your chicken. And I would eat it with the skin and everything. Eat the collagens, gnaw on the bones. All of that is good for you. So a rotisserie chicken is good. You could keep that in your truck. Like boiled eggs. Those are just some of the things that I think about if I was on the road, stopping at a truck stop. I guess I wouldn't have to go off my diet except for to tell them no Cedos, cook everything in butter. I want steak, bacon, and butter, or steak, bacon, and eggs.
Now,
So
I do have to ask something with hamburgers. Obviously, we don't eat the bun, but I never buy hamburgers ever because I always, first of all, I don't know what meat it is. Number one, number two, I always think there's all sorts of cereals and stuff in it.
Well, at this point, I mean, yes, I would love you to eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef.
grass-fed, yeah, that's what I was saying.
But if the least best hamburger is better than all other carbs. How about that?
I totally agree.
And so if your only option is Bebop's or McDonald's burgers, you get 6 of those burgers cooked on no oil with bacon strips on the side. And again, when I'm saying beef patties, no buns, no lettuce, no tomatoes, no nothing, because that's all plant foods.
That's great stuff. What about seafood? Fish.
I think seafood, but you spoke about this earlier. A lot of our seafood is farm raised, and it's got a lot of chemicals in it. So if we can get, wild caught fish, I don't have problems with people eating shrimp and oysters and sardines. Sardines are so good for us. Eating organ meats are so good for us. If you have a chance and you can eat liver once a week, my goodness, go for it.
It's the best.
Organ meats are very healthy.
Just don't overcook the liver. Then it tastes like shoes.
Yeah. Yep. Look, you got Rico laughing. Don't fall out of your chair, Rico.
Well, Doc, I definitely appreciate you being so gracious with your time and coming on and sharing with us a ton of helpful information.
Wow.
I know that hopefully our listeners and everyone else has gotten a ton of information out of this. I put Doc's number again right there on the screen. If you want to follow up and give her a call, take a look, follow her on Instagram, follow her on X, check her out. And check out her practice on Facebook as well. Definitely, Doc. We appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with before we get out of here tonight?
Well, it's an honor to be on with you guys. I really appreciate it. I want to, help spread the word of health as much as I can, and I'm very passionate about what I have been embarking in the past few years with carnivore and keto. And I just want to let your listeners know, let my listeners know that it is possible to reverse your diseases. You do not have to live with these diseases for the rest of your life. I have seen miracles happen with my patients. They're off their medicines. They're feeling great. Their brain is working better. And so let's stop feeding our diseases and let's start working at eating for simply a fuel to feed this temple that we have been given by our Creator.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us tonight. This has been great. I hope you'll join us again, because this is really the way you explain things. You should be a teacher or professor. Really,
Thank you.
If you can explain something to me, you're good. Because not very many teachers throughout my school years could ever hold my interest that long.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining. Thank you again for being so gracious with the time. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you, Rico.
If anybody wants to get a hold of me, send me a quick email with your phone number to chucksnow280@outlook.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'm back from holidays, so there's no reason I can't get back to you right away. Same day or next day at the latest. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back in the hole for another week.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in whether you took a little bit of time to hang out with us live or if you're watching this on recording. We definitely appreciate it. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you took a little time to hang out with us, and we're always eternally grateful for you doing so. If you would, please, if you found any of the information tonight shared helpful, entertaining, please share the video. Share the video. Gets us out into a broader algorithm, gets the word out, and we definitely appreciate you doing so. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip flop.
Thanks
See ya.
again, Doc.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks, Doc. Good night.
Good
God
night.
bless.
Bye, Chuck.
Bye-bye.